again, and welcome back to Phillies Extra, the baseball podcast from the Philadelphia Inquirer. I'm Stott and I write about the Phillies and Major League Baseball. And no matter where you're finding us, Apple, Spotify, Inquirer.com, the Inquirer's YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, or wherever else you get your sports news and podcasts, thank you, as always, for spending part of your week with us. My guest this week is Phillies hitting coach Kevin Long, and I couldn't be more excited to have him. He was just in town for several days of organizational meetings at Citizens Bank Park, which is something the Phillies do every year. They gather together everyone in the front office, scouts, the analytics department, members of the player development staff, manager Rob Thompson, and a few coaches. Pitching coach Caleb Cotham and his department are usually there. Long represents the hitting side, and they go over, well, everything. They talk about each player on the roster. They discuss various free agents, their own guys, as well as players who are on other teams. They kick around trade concepts, and mainly they come up with a plan for the offseason. Actually, it's a series of plans because it's really rare that everything in Plan A falls neatly into place. Anyway, Kevin Long came out of those meetings, and before he traveled home to Arizona, he was kind enough to sit down with me, and we covered a lot of ground. From Bryce Harper and the question of how he can be elite again, to the chances that Kyle Schwarber will come back, to the growth of Brandon Marsh and Bryson Stott in the second half of the season, and a lot more. So please stick with me for that. First, though, the Los Angeles Dodgers became the first team in 25 years to win back-to-back World Series by coming from behind to defeat the Blue Jays in 11 innings of a Game 7 for the ages Saturday night in Toronto. And with that, the offseason officially got underway. So I want to go quickly over a few things that you'll need to know. The Phillies have 8 players under contract for a total of $170.4 million in 2026. That's Zach Wheeler, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Aaron Nola, Nick Castellanos, Taijuan Walker, Matt Strahm, and Christopher Sanchez. They're trying to trade Castellanos in particular, but even if they find a taker, they're going to have to pay most of the $20 million that remains on his contract. Now, 9 players are eligible for arbitration. That's Jesus Luzardo, Alec Bohm, Joan Duran, Bryson Stott, Brandon Marsh, Edmundo Sosa, Tanner Banks, Rafael Marchand, and Garrett Stubbs. If the Phillies offer them all contracts for 2026, projections for their salaries add up to about $45.5 million. Anyone else is not yet eligible for arbitration and will make close to the league minimum, which is almost $800,000. So that takes the Phillies to about $220 million before we even start talking about a single free agent. For luxury tax purposes, the payroll will come in at approximately $312 million this year. Dave Dombrowski hasn't gotten into specifics on next year's payroll, other than to say it will continue to be, quote, very substantial. Schwarber, JT Realmuto, Ranger Suarez, and Harrison Bader are the Phillies' most notable free agents. Dombrowski said last month, quote, "We'd love to have them all if it worked out, but it's probably impractical that you're going to have all 4 of them back." Across the league, the general consensus is that John Middleton won't let Schwarber leave town. Realmuto is fairly essential, too, for what he means to the pitching staff and also given the lack of options to replace him, internally and in free agency. I've written in depth over the last few days about how the market might shape up for Schwarber and Realmuto, so I'd encourage you to check those pieces on Inquirer.com. But the logical question becomes, if the Phillies re-sign Schwarber and Realmuto, will they have the room in the budget to add another big-name free agent? Or will their biggest moves have to come via trades? The general managers' meetings will take place next week in Las Vegas. There's usually less activity there than at the winter meetings, which are December 8th through 10th in Orlando. But there will be news that comes out of both. So please keep it locked in at Inquirer.com for all the news and all the latest. Okay, now that we've gotten some of that housekeeping out of the way, let's get to my sit-down with Kevin Long. After that, I'll have some thoughts on the World Series, which I'll share in our Reporter's Notebook segment. And as always, we'll wrap up the show by taking a listener question at the end. But now, without further ado, here's Phillies hitting coach Kevin Long. Kevin Long, welcome back to Phillies Extra from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Thanks so much for joining me again.
Well, it's good to be back, and I'm looking forward to a nice conversation.
So I'll tell you, we've done 38 of these shows now, one every week since February, and you are our first solo repeat guest.
Oh, boy.
We've
Well,
Preston
I
Mattingly
feel
is
very privileged and special for that. Thank
yeah.
you.
Preston Mattingly's been with us twice too, but the first time he was with his dad before Father's Day weekend. So congratulations on being a charter member of the Two Timers Club. We should get you a T-shirt or a jacket or something like that.
It feels good, and I feel honored. Thank you.
Look, in all seriousness, I always enjoy talking with you because I learn something new about hitting every time. And that's really what the objective is, I think, in my job, is to kind of better understand what I'm watching so I can help break it down for our readers and our listeners. And if I could, I'd like to start just by going back a few weeks to the Dodger series. I thought at the time that the pitching on both sides was tremendous. You guys, hit 212 in the series, 657 OPS. You scored 15 runs. And then, obviously a lot of that comes in game 3. And then the Dodgers go to the NLCS, and, the Brewers do about half of that in the NLCS in a sweep. And it kind of validated how I felt coming out of the series, which was that it was more about how well they pitched than necessarily anything that you guys did or didn't do at the plate. I wonder, with a few weeks now to digest it, broadly speaking, whether there were kind of any takeaways that you had about how you guys swung the bats in those 4 games.
So right now, I think the Blue Jays are the only team hitting over 250 in the playoffs. Yep. Going into the last game, we were hitting above 250. So we were having a really good series. So if you really want to break it down, did we do what we needed to do the first game against Ohtani? We scored 3 runs. It was a decent game. I thought our at-bats were good. I thought they were competitive. I thought we could have won the ball game. Game 2, much more of the same. We scored 3 runs, swung the bats pretty good. Came up on the short end of the stick. Okay, so we're down 2-2 going into Dodger Stadium. Got Yamamoto, who's arguably been the best pitcher throughout the playoffs. We have great at-bats against him. We end up blowing that game out and win 8-2. So now we've scored 14 runs in 3 games. We've got 1 win. Actually, swinging the bat's pretty good. Our approach has been good. And in game 4, our approach was good again. It just Glasnow was on top of his game. He pitched really good. Obviously, we were up for the task on our end, pitching well. And we were right there. We ended up a little short, but I look at this series much differently than the Mets series last year, where I felt like our bats could have been better and we could have had better approaches. And in this series against the Dodgers, I thought we did enough to win. Not only pitching wise, hitting wise, I just felt like we played solid baseball. It didn't work out. Could we have swept them? Yes. Could they have swept us? Yes. Could it ended up the way it did? Yes. Could it ended up the other way? Yes. So tough series overall. One that eats you up still, and it's just not fun losing. It never is. It never will be. It sucks, but it is what it is. You move on. If you let it eat it up and you let it dictate your life, then I think that's on you. I know that our guys prepared the right way. I know that as a hitting group, our coaching staff did a good job. It just didn't end up working out.
I caught up with you for a few minutes on the off day before game 3 in LA. And I think we talked a lot about what you were seeing from Bryce Harper, through the first 2 games of the series. And, as I'm sure Bryce has kind of been a popular topic around here the last few weeks, just for reasons that don't make a ton of sense. Let's stick strictly to the hitting, because that's your expertise. Mm-hmm. Bryce had a year where the numbers, I think probably 90% of hitters around the league would sign for those numbers every single year. But, for Bryce, because he's an elite hitter, an elite player, they were maybe a tick below his usual standards. Some of that certainly had to do with him being out a month because of the wrist injury in June. But I wonder what you made of his season overall, and kind of whether you see or saw anything different from him this year than in years past, and what you left him with when you sent him off into the offseason.
Yeah, I think, you look at Bryce's year, and Started off with the injury and kind of was playing through whatever, I don't know, difficulties he was feeling. And then he got a little PRP injection. He got it taken care of and came back, and I thought swung the bat really well. It's a shortened season for him because he didn't get all his at bats. So I don't know if he plays another month. What do those numbers look like? He ended up with 27 homers, drove in 75. Does that end up being 35 and 98? I mean, I don't know. So we're really talking about minor things. What could he have done better? He saw the least amount of strikes in baseball. Okay. And he probably ended up swinging too much and probably needed to control the strike zone a little bit better than he did. But other than that, I mean, I was pleased with Bryce's year, what he did, how he performed. Listen, if you look at everybody's numbers and what they did, I mean, Bryce was a big part of our offense, which was a top 5 offense, and performed very well during the season. And actually in the playoffs did a stand-up job as well. So, Bryce, if you look at different years and what he's done, yeah, these numbers are probably a little bit down, but I'm not worried about Bryce. I think Bryce is a very talented player, a really, really good hitter. He's a middle of the order guy. He's an impact guy. He's a superstar in this league, and I'm glad he's on our team.
You mentioned that he saw a lower rate of pitches in the zone than any hitter in the sport. I think it was 43%. And it's interesting. I kind of did a little dive into some of that for a story I wrote last week. And one of the things that I found that, I don't know if it surprised me, but it definitely kind of caught my eye, was that if you look at his first 6 years with the Phillies, so 2019 to 24, that number was really similar, 42.6% of pitches in the zone. Yep. So again, one of the lowest rates of any hitter in baseball for those 6 years. I thought the difference this year, though, when I looked into it, was, he slugged, I think the number was 591 on those pitches this year, whereas in the previous 6 years, it was 680 on those pitches. So it seemed like maybe he did, kind of more, he punished those strikes more.
Right.
Was there a reason for that? Was there something that maybe, like you just said, maybe he swung at a few too many pitches or something like that? But was there a reason why maybe the damage wasn't quite to that normal level?
Yeah, I think he expanded a little bit more than we're accustomed to. I don't know what his actual chase rate ended up being, but it was probably 35%, maybe 36%. It's high. Where if he gets that number down to 32, you just drop it 3%. You're going, well, he's swinging at better pitches. He's going to do more damage. You just throw that into the equation, and that's probably it more than anything. And then was he able to do enough damage with his wrist being in the shape it was in early? Probably not. So that, you could probably throw that into the equation as well. But, he got healthy. We need to do a better job of commanding the strike zone and making sure we're swinging at pitches he can do damage to. But other than that, I don't think there's anything you can point your finger to.
There was I thought kind of a funny moment in, late in the season in that series in Arizona, where Alec Boehm came back and he had a big series, big 3 games. And a few of us were talking to Bryce after the last game, and someone suggested, boy, if Boehm continues to swing the bat like this, I wonder if you get more pitches in the zone. And Bryce said, I doubt it. And we kind of all laughed. And he said, look, don't get me wrong. I'm nothing against Alec or anything like that, but this is just how it is. Every team goes into a series going, we're not going to let so-and-so beat us. And with the Phillies, it's very often it's Bryce. And so a question I never really kind of asked you or Rob Thompson really as the season went along, back in April, you guys moved Kyle Schwarber to hit behind Bryce. And it was that way for about a month or so. Then Bryce got hurt. And when he came back, Schwarbs was in such a groove in the number 2 spot, right? You didn't move him out of there. And I wonder whether, do you feel like that makes a difference? Whether, who's hitting behind him, and if it had been Schwarber for, the latter half of the season, the way it was for that month after you moved him there, whether that makes a difference in Bryce's year?
That it does help to have somebody behind you that, You go, well, what did we do when Ohtani and Betts? We walked Ohtani to get to Betts. Do you walk Schwarber to get to Harper? Do you walk Harper to get to Schwarber? Do you walk Harper to get to Baum? I mean, so you got to kind of pick your poison. It can have an effect on the pitches you see, but in Bryce's case, I think it's more, okay, if this is where it's been the last 6 years and since he's been here, then the onus falls on me to make sure that he's swinging at the right pitches and him to make sure that he's not expanding. No matter what, he has to control his at-bats, and he has to make sure he's doing what he needs to do to be the best version of himself so that he can be Bryce Harper, the quote superstar. So, it goes a little bit both ways. There's some onus on me. There's onus on Bryce to do a better job. And then, can we maybe help him out and put somebody behind him? I mean, that might be part of the equation as well. So I'm going to say first and foremost, I got to do a better job making sure that he's swinging at the right pitches. He will say the same thing about himself, and then we'll figure out, kind of how we protect Bryce and make sure that we're putting him in the best situation. So
yeah,
hopefully I explained that the right way.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, one of the interesting things was when you guys did make that move in April and put Schwarber behind Bryce. Mm-hmm. It was only a month that it happened that way because then Bryce got hurt. But like during that month, it's not like he saw a lot more pitches in the zone. In fact, I remember talking to him in Cleveland in May, and he said, it's actually worse. Yeah. Like I'm actually seeing fewer, and I he was baffled by that. One of the other things was I think he saw fewer fastballs, right, than ever before. Yeah. He got attacked with breaking stuff, and that certainly seemed like it was a change maybe from years past, in that he didn't see a lot of pitches, period, and he didn't see a lot of fastballs.
I think, I don't care where you hit Ohtani, I think they're going to pitch him the exact same way. They're scared to death of him. I think Harper's in that category where you can kind of put him wherever you want, but I do not think pitchers are going to give in to him. I just don't. I think they're going to try to be very, very careful. They're going to try to make their pitch, and not only that, they're going to go to their out pitch more often against Bryce Harper or Ohtani or a Schwarber. The good hitters in this league, you got to be very careful with. So I think you're nailing it with that. Just he's got to do a better job of making sure he's swinging at pitches he can do damage to.
You and I have talked a good bit over the years about all the work that Schwarber has done going back to 2021 with the Nationals and over the last few years here to turn himself into a more complete hitter than he was when he was younger. He really struggled against lefties with the Cubs. It led to him being non-tendered. How much do you hold him up as an example to guys like Brandon Marsh and Bryson Stott, who, especially in Marsh's case, are maybe dealing with some similar challenges to what Schwarber was dealing with at that point in his career when you first crossed paths with him?
I think a lot. I think, you go into this thing and kind of know where you're at as a hitter, as an athlete, and you find out how tough this league is. And then you figure out, boy, what adjustments, or you think about what adjustments you have to make to be even better than what you are at any given point. In Schwarber's case, it was, I got to do a better job hitting lefties. And we got to work. And we got to put in the time and the effort to get there. And to Schwarber's credit, he was willing to do it, obviously able to do it, which is very cool, because a lot of people would say, he's never going to hit left-handed pitching. And is that where Brandon Marsh is right now? I think there's a lot of people that doubt whether he can hit left-handed pitching. He's got to get the chance. He's got to put in the work. He's got to, put in the time and the effort that it takes to be able to do this. But I mean, he's matured as a hitter. He's getting better and better every single year. And Stott is much the same. There was a time where Stott was taking too much and not swinging the bat enough and not hitting fastballs. He's kind of been able to do all this. Now he's just got to put it all together. Both those guys' mechanics are in a great spot. Moving forward, And moving into next year, I like where they're at. I like that they're a big part of our offense. They're not these guys that we can't count on anymore. I think we can count on them to be an effective part of what I call a very good offense.
Yeah, I remember you saying to me in spring training, like my challenge to Marsh and Stott is think of yourselves as superstar level players, because on a lot of other teams, you'd be hitting closer to the top of the order. And, don't think of yourself as a supporting actor here. And look, I mean, Marsh hit 300 after April, right? And I think he OPS'd in the 830s after April. And Stott, made that adjustment with his hands. And, his last 2 months were a lot better. So it does seem like maybe they're in a better place moving forward than they were if we were having this conversation like the first half of the year.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is you talk about, middle of the order guys or hitting behind Bryce or hitting behind Schwarber. And I looked at the Toronto Blue Jays. Who's their number 4 hitter? Who's their number 5 hitter? Who are they?
Yeah, it's been different guys, right? I mean,
exactly. Okay, so who
sometimes it's Barger, sometimes, right?
Barger. Okay, that's a big name. Varsho, Kirk. Right. So every team has, because where are your top hitters? Yeah. They're at the beginning of the order because you want them up the most. So I look at the Dodgers. Okay, who's hitting 4 or 5 for them? A little bit better when Will Smith's back. But if Will Smith's not in that lineup, they don't have really. And you look at the bottom of their order, it's a little bit weaker. The Blue Jays seem to have this continuity that's kind of a grind that goes through their lineup. I believe we can be more like that. Where do we actually need these big boppers in the middle of our order? Our big boppers are going to hit in the top of our order. That's where they're going to hit. So, we just got to be able to keep the line moving, put together good at-bats. Alec Baum's a great hitter. I think Brandon Marsh is a great hitter. I think Bryson Stott is a very, very good hitter. So we've got enough pieces to kind of make this work. You throw JT, does he come back? Is he in that mix? Valuable hitter, very good, puts together very good at-bats. So, I mean, there's enough pieces here. And we got to do a few other things. Bader was obviously very valuable to our lineup. So I don't know. As I look through baseball, I look at kind of the same issues and the same problems. And I think ours are a lot less than a lot of other teams. And that's probably why we won 96 games.
Yeah. Back to Schwarber for a minute. You know him as well as anyone. And I think you advocated 4 years ago for the Phillies to sign him. I'm not sure anybody in the organization needs any convincing anymore. And I know that there are a lot of factors that will go into this, but I wonder if you have a sense, one way or the other, kind of what your level of confidence is that, he finds his way back here and kind of continues his relationship as a Philly. I don't know how much that came up before everyone kind of broke up and said their goodbyes a few weeks ago, but just your level of confidence that you're going to be working with him again next year.
I think it's very high. When you have the owner who wants them, you have Dave Dombrowski who wants them, you have the coaching staff, you have Rob Thompson, you have a fan base. There's really everybody involved here wants to be back, including Kyle. So what does it come down to? What's his market value, and are we willing to give him his market value? And I think the answer is yes. To that. And, when you put all that into the equation, I think there's a strong chance that Kyle comes back. I think it would be devastating to this organization and this fan base and everybody involved if he wasn't a Philly. So we'll see where it ends up, but I feel very confident that he'll be back.
We're close to 20 minutes into this, and we haven't mentioned Trey Turner yet, and I think we should. Okay. Because, look, going into this season, there was a lot of focus on Trey, and whether he could kind of, do some of the things that he did all those years in Washington and in LA, right? Get back to swinging at fewer pitches out of the zone and using more of the field and maybe sacrificing some power for more contact and just being kind of the dynamic game changer at the top of the order that we know him. And then he goes out and he does exactly that, right? He wins the batting title. He was on pace for 200 hits and 100 runs before he got hurt and missed the last 3 weeks of the season. How gratifying is it for you as a hitting coach to kind of see a guy who's been a star in this league for several years kind of take it to heart that, like, hey, I can be better, or I can get back to a place that I was before where I was dominant, and then really put in the work to make those adjustments and do all the things that you asked him and wanted him to do?
Well, there comes a point in time where, again, you look at where you are and what you need to do to become the player that you know you are. And Trey put in the work, he put in the time, he put in the effort. And it's a proud feeling for me and him, knowing that he set out to do something and not only did it, but did it at the highest level. He was set, like you said, to have 200 hits. He led the league in hitting. He was set to have 100 runs. He was, I mean, it's hard to look at his year and be disappointed with anything. He was a tremendous part of getting our offense going. It was just fun to watch. And I will say this. Trey lost his mother last year, and she would have been, I wish she could have seen what her son did. And I know that he's very proud, and we talk about her and kind of her impact on his career. But I think going through that and then putting together the year he had, it's very proud and satisfying moment for him. And I know his mom's looking down from a nice little place in heaven saying, that away, way to go, son. So pretty cool. I'm getting a little emotional thinking about it because I know Donna pretty well. But seeing how he responded to that makes me proud as well.
Yeah, I mean, he was an MVP candidate for sure. Top 5 MVP candidate in the league this year, which is, I think, what everyone knew that he was in the first place. All right, maybe we wrap things up with this. In my opinion, and I'm guessing you agree, hitting has never been more difficult than it is right now. Like across the sport, the batting average this year was 249. Mm-hmm. Last year it was 244. In 2022, it was 246. Like, this is a trend now. Mm-hmm. You just completed your 19th season as a big league hitting coach. Aside from technology, right, which is obviously getting better and better, you've got the Traject machine now where you can simulate an actual pitcher and his stuff. I wonder, what's the biggest difference between how you coach hitting today compared to, let's say, 07, 08, 09 when you were getting going with the Yankees? Like, is there a difference in philosophy? Is there a difference in maybe how you have to approach pitching, given all of the advances in pitching now with the spin and the shapes and all of that? How is coaching hitting different now than it was 15, 16, 17 years ago?
I think we're working harder at it than we ever have. We're using all the technology. We're using all the analytics. We've got 2 cages, not 1. We've got machines that help us. We've got not 1 hitting coach. We've got 3 hitting coaches. The players are paying more attention to detail. They're working on the right stuff. It's just, that it's very difficult because of the arms and the movements, and they're doing the same thing. The pitching, there's pitching labs, there's hitting labs, there's just so much out there. And I give credit to our industry for wanting the players to be the best that they can possibly be. And I think on the pitching side, they're doing that. I think on the hitting side, we're doing that. It's this cat and mouse game to try to get, the hitting better than the pitching. And, there for a while, the hitting's better than the pitching. Now the pitching seems to be doing, their job. So it's fun. I'm enjoying it still, going into my 20th season. There's still challenges. There's challenges every day with what's out there, with what we can do to be better. How can we help our players be a better version of themselves? It's a lot of fun to still go out there, and I'm competing with these guys, and I'm still enjoying every minute of it. But it's trying. It's definitely tough.
Well, look, Kevin, this was fascinating as always. And before I let you go, I have to ask, how's your arm? For people who don't know you, yeah, look at that. You can do that.
It's doing good. I'm been rehabbing pretty hard and doing my exercises, my arm care, and I'll be ready for spring training. That's for sure.
For people who don't know, you actually had surgery, right? In August, you tore a biceps tendon throwing BP.
Working the cages. My shoulder finally said that's enough. Some rotator cuff damage, some labrum damage, some bicep tendon damage. But Dr. Cohen put me back together, and I'm feeling pretty good. It's been about 3 months now, and we're on the right track. That's for sure.
And this is not a first. Like, you had Tommy John surgery about what, close to 10 years ago now.
This is my second shoulder surgery. I've had elbow surgery. Who would have told me that I was going to have all these problems with my arm? I would have said no way, because I was a hitter. But being a hitting coach, now I know.
Well, you probably throw as many pitches as anyone on the roster, right? So over the course of the year,
700, 800 pitches a day. So when I get back, I got to make sure that I knock that number down a little bit and rely on some of the other coaches to help me. So,
well, I'm sure that when spring training gets here, which, I know the offseason's just starting, but it comes quick. I know you're going to be throwing BP when we see you down in Clearwater. So, listen, it's the offseason, and believe me, I know how precious these days are. So I really appreciate you carving out a few minutes to be with us at Phillies Extra from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Enjoy the rest of your winter.
You too.
I'll be in touch, and I'm sure we'll see you in Clearwater very soon.
I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you having me on for the second time. Thank you.
You bet. I want to thank Kevin Long again for joining me. It's time now to open the reporter's notebook. And this week, after the mesmerizing theater that the Dodgers and Blue Jays just treated us to, I'd like to share 3 thoughts from what I suspect will go down as one of the best World Series of our lifetime. Number 1, if it makes the other 29 teams feel better, they can say the Dodgers won because they spent $500 million plus in salary and luxury tax. But the biggest swing of the season came from a 36-year-old utility infielder who made all of $5 million and hit exactly 1 home run in 182 plate appearances against right-handed pitching during the regular season. And that was back on June 14th. I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, but as the 9th inning unfolded, I texted a friend and said, "Why is Miguel Rojas hitting here?" I barely pushed the send button when Rojas, inserted into the lineup in Game 6 by Dave Roberts, joined Bill Mazeroski and Bucky Dent in the ranks of light-hitting middle infielders who delivered some of the biggest home runs in baseball history. And I am not being hyperbolic. The Dodgers were 2 outs from losing the series in the bottom of the 9th against former Phillies reliever Jeff Hoffman, and Rojas pulled them back from the brink by tying the game with a home run. My point is, the Dodgers role players, and I'm talking about Rojas, Andy Pages, who saved the game in the 10th inning by making a terrific catch while crashing into left fielder Kike Hernandez, and reliever Will Klein, who delivered 4 scoreless innings in the 18-inning marathon in Game 3. Those guys were every bit as instrumental in the World Series as Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, which proves that it takes more than money to win a championship. Number 2. As I watched Yoshinobu Yamamoto pitch the last 3 innings on 0 days rest, flashbacks of Randy Johnson in 2001, I thought a lot about the Phillies' pursuit of the star Japanese pitcher 2 winters ago. The details don't really matter much now, other than to say the Phillies put on a full-court press in a meeting with Yamamoto in Southern California. They offered him $300 million with opt-out language and escalators that would have pushed the overall value beyond the $325 million guarantee that Yamamoto got from the Dodgers. But Yamamoto didn't want to play anywhere else. He had his mind set on Los Angeles. He wanted to play with his countryman Shohei Ohtani. That's where he was going to go. 2 years later, it's safe to say Yamamoto is every bit as great as the Phillies thought he was, which is a credit to their scouts and their analysts. But his greatness and the fact that he never seriously considered Philadelphia re-raises the challenge the Phillies face in attracting players from Japan. There are many reasons for that. For one thing, there's no precedent for a Japanese player signing a major league contract with the Phillies. For another, there isn't a direct flight from Japan to Philadelphia like there are from other U.S. cities, notably L.A. and New York. But with more Japanese players hitting the free agent market this year, including 2 third basemen, Munetaka Murakami and Kazuma Okamoto, Yamamoto's World Series heroics are a reminder that the Phillies haven't come close to breaking through in the Far East market. Finally, number 3, baseball is a copycat industry. And at this time of year especially, we tend to look at the 2 World Series combatants and wonder if there's anything the rest of the sport can glean from their success. In the Blue Jays' case, it's worth admiring their hitters' contact skills. As a team, the Jays struck out only 17.8% of the time, the lowest rate in the majors. And they were proof that if you put the ball in play, you never know what can happen. How great would it be for the sport if every team gets back to that philosophy instead of having their hitters focus on launching everything out of the ballpark at the expense of striking out? On the Dodgers side, it was fascinating to see them completely flip their pitching plan from one postseason to another. After nearly running out of starting pitching last October and trying to build a super bullpen in the offseason, they leaned heavily on starters Blake Snell, Yamamoto, Shohei Ohtani, and Tyler Glasnow. How heavily? Well, consider this. Those 4 pitchers got 198 of the 276 outs the Dodgers needed against the Reds, Phillies, and Brewers to win the National League pennant. Then, in the World Series, Snell, Yamamoto, Ohtani, and Glasnow combined for 64.4% of the outs, including 26 of the 33 outs in Game 7. And a lot of the heavy bullpen lifting was done by surplus starters, Roki Sasaki and Emmett Sheehan. Clayton Kershaw got a big out in Game 3. The lesson there, in an age of bullpenning, the best way to win is still building a talented, deep starting rotation and leaning on your horses as much as you possibly can. The Phillies can't just count on Andrew Painter to step in and replace Ranger Suarez if he leaves in free agency. They're going to have Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Aaron Nola, Taijuan Walker, and of course, Zach Wheeler, although they can't possibly know when or if he'll return to his elite level after thoracic outlet decompression surgery. The rotation remains the strength of the Phillies roster, but as the Dodgers showed everyone, it can't ever be too good or too deep. Okay, it's time now for Hit and Run, where we take a question from you out there. Want to join the conversation? Drop me an email at slauber@inquirer.com or reach out on the social media platform of your choice, X, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, or you can always drop me a line in the comments section on YouTube as well. This week's question comes from Cerevant, Cerevant, on Blue Sky, who asks, quote, do you think the CBA coming up in 27 and the possibility of a hard salary cap will have any impact on the contract decisions this year? That is a great question. And let me tell you, it's something I'm going to be asking a lot of executives next week at the general managers meetings in Las Vegas. For those who don't know, the collective bargaining agreement is set to expire on December 1st, 2026, so a little more than a year from now. A lot of owners, maybe even the majority, want a salary cap. That's a hill the players have traditionally been willing to die on. As long as both sides dig in on the issue, baseball is barreling towards another work stoppage in, about 13 months. Now, the last time labor unrest loomed over an offseason, back in the winter of 2020-2021, free agent spending was down, like way down. But that probably had as much to do with the lingering effects of a 60-game season without fans in the seats. It did happen, though, and it's got the union and the players a little bit concerned about what may be awaiting them in this market. Now, I doubt the uncertainty over the next CBA is going to affect the top of the market. Kyle Tucker is still going to get a mega deal. Kyle Schwarber will get 4 or 5 years at $30 million or so per year. Alex Bregman, Cody Bellinger, they're going to do just fine. But it's the 3rd and 4th and 5th tier free agents that I'm going to be watching. For example, Harrison Bader made $10 million this year and had one of his best seasons. He's in a position for a multi-year contract, but nobody knows what the rules are going to be in 2027 and beyond, right? Will the luxury tax thresholds rise? Probably. They usually do. But will the penalties be harsher or more lenient for teams that go over the threshold? We'll have to wait and see. So our team's going to look at players in Bader's class and say, we'll pay a higher annual salary for 2026, but we need to keep this to a one-year deal. And will the players in that group say, Maybe I'll take a little less per year, but I want at least a 2-year deal so that I know I'm signed through the work stoppage. These are things that I want to ask next week. So thank you so much for your terrific question, and I promise to report back with some answers. All right, we're going to leave it there for this week and tell you that all past episodes of Phillies Extra are available by going to Inquirer.com and clicking on the Inquirer Live tab, or on the Inquirer's YouTube page or Facebook page. There are plenty of places. We also have a pretty good library now of episodes on Spotify and Apple. You can listen to this episode and many others there. And while you're there, please give us a follow, rate and review us. We want to keep this podcast going for as long as we can, and it really does help. Thanks again to my guest, Kevin Long, of course, and thanks to our producer, Mariam Akraz, this week for helping us put all of this together. Most of all, thank you so much to you out there for listening, watching, and of course for reading the Philadelphia Inquirer. See you next week.